Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to the award-winning podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you like this podcast, you will love my new anthology called Moms Don't Have Time to Have Kids. Check it out, and you'll hear from 49 authors about all sorts of things moms don't have time to do. All the authors have been on this podcast. Also, check out my TikTok @with Zibby and Tracy, my other podcast, Sex Talk with Zibby and Tracy. Check out Moms Don't Have Time to Write on Medium. And of course, my new publishing company called Zibby Books. And now back to our daily author interview site and a quick hello from some of my kids. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Enjoy the show. Maira Kalman is the illustrator and author of Darling Baby. Maira is an illustrator, author, and designer who has created many beautiful books, including Fireboat, The Heroic Adventures of John H. Harvey, Bold and Brave, 10 Heroes Who Won Women the Right to Vote by Kirsten Gillibrand, who, by the way, I also had on this podcast if you want to go back and listen to that, 13 Words by Lemony Snicket, and Daniel Handler's Why We Broke Up. She has been called genius, magic, and inspiring, but her grandchildren call her Appy. Welcome, Maira. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss Darling Baby and all your other work.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, congratulations. I understand this book is inspired by your new grandchild.
Yes, at this point she's not that new. There's a second one, but it was definitely inspired when she was born, and I entered into the whole world of being a grandmother.
And what is that like?
That's sublime. You know, of course, the cliche is all of the love without any of the responsibility. So it's an extraordinarily clear and pure, with human complications of life, but it's an incredible gift and it makes your heart sing.
Oh, it's amazing. My mother started talking about being a grandmother when I was like 18. So I'm like, give me a little time, please.
I won't ask you how long she had to wait.
She had to wait. I had kids when I was 30, so not too long.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not
too bad. Yes. So your career has been amazing. I mean, just looking at, like, I think the kids and I have read almost every book of yours. I interviewed Kirsten Gillibrand about Bold and Brave, which you illustrated, What Pete Ate A to Z, the Thomas Jefferson, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Everything, which, by the way, was also on the kids' reading list, as was Looking at Lincoln. I mean, all these books, Max Makes a Million, Swami on Rye, Next Stop Grand Central. I mean, it's amazing. And those are just the kids' books. How did you get started in doing all of this? And you know, what do you love about it? Like, what is most exciting to you about what you do?
Well, I thought I was going to be a writer as a child and as a teenager. And then my writing became so angst-ridden, I thought I better do something else. But I knew I wanted to tell my story, and I thought I'm going to do drawings. And so I started with that level of, I'm just going to draw and tell a narrative relating to literature. And I did that for about 10 or 15 years, and then had children. And I thought, okay, this mayhem is very inspiring of having children running around the house. And it allowed me to go back to what I wanted to do, which is to write and then to incorporate painting. So I can use both sides of my brain. And it's so liberating to write for children that I'm in heaven and don't think I'll ever stop.
We also, by the way, loved your book Cake as giant cake fans. So actually my husband gave that to my son, and that's like his special little book. Anyway, yeah, we're just like big fans. Sorry. Now I'm just repeating myself.
That's lovely to hear. Thank you. Couldn't say it enough.
So you basically telling stories through pictures is still another, I mean, that is a form of writing, right? It is a form of telling the story and getting the message out, as you said. Where does that compulsion come from? The desire to, you know, tell a story, entertain someone else, get it on paper. Like, tell me about that.
Well, if I had to be psychological about it, I would say that it's the desire to be realized as a human being, not be invisible. I think that at an early age, whatever the forces were at work in my DNA and my family, I wanted to be present through expressing myself that way. There was no question for me that that was my life. It wasn't searching and wondering. It was, I know I'm going to do this. I just don't know how it's actually going to be realized. And that incorporating humor and writing and painting, I thought, this is a very, very good job to think about. And it hasn't left. It sustains you in a way that's very real. Of course, to find your work is the most nourishing thing you could possibly do, besides having a family that you love. But the work is sometimes more consistent than the family. But you know what I mean, that your brain is producing something. So who knows? The answer is who knows why.
What was your family like growing up? Where did you grow up?
I was born in Tel Aviv, and we moved here when I was 4. And there was a very large family. And the women, as I've written in the book about my mother, Sarah Berman's Closet, the women really were the center of the story in many, many ways. The men were okay, but they were peripheral. I say the men were fine, but the women were wondrous. And they told stories and communicated with each other and baked cakes and did the laundry and took care of everybody, basically. So that's the legacy that I come from. A lot of ironing and starching, starching and ironing, which I still do. And that sense that the daily life of a human being, it can be the most interesting and the most important, that you don't have to go anywhere else, that this life that you're living is incorporated into your work. And I never wanted to see a distinction between work and life. It's all mixed into the batter, as to extend the metaphor. And I grew up in the Bronx and then in New York City, which I always say is come to New York. If you want to come to New York, come in the 1950s. And I have to look at I do look at my life and say, what a great thing. So I've been really lucky.
That's amazing. Well, as you can tell by the sirens, I am also in New York right now, but maybe you couldn't tell.
I don't hear them, though. I hear my own sirens every 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Oh my goodness. So when you start a project like Darling Baby, what do you start with? Do you start with one illustration and go from there? Do you start with the idea? When do you start the actual artistry behind it versus the words? What's your process like when you're creating?
Every book is different, but every book is basically the same, and it's born out of something that I love. And it's something that I'm talking about in my life. I'm not trying to sort of artificially find an idea. It kind of bubbles up from daily conversation. Darling Baby grew out of being with my granddaughter at the beach when she was 5 months old. And I kept a diary of what happened to us, what happened to me, what happened to us. And it was with drawings and writing, and it was all there. This book is very, very close to the diary that I had and that I kept, and just a little bit more elaborate and more painting. So it was a love letter to her, of course, to my granddaughter Olive, and it was a love letter to just being alive.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's so amazing. So do you paint there where you are now, in your home? Do you go somewhere to paint? How do you get that done?
So the book evolves, and I'm doing, all the children's books. There are drafts of writing and sketching. I have a separate studio that I go to, because when the kids were little, it became clear that if I didn't have a separate studio, things would end bad. So to go to a room of one's own, as we always say. And that's where I work. I wake up very early. I hate working at night. So I finish working by about 6 o'clock. And that sense of, okay, a lot of work has been done. A lot of work can be done from the morning till the evening. And that's it. It's I lead a very quiet existence. And certainly with COVID, I used to travel a lot more. Of course, these years, none. But it's also been interesting to me that taking a walk around the block is exhilarating. You could say that sounds idiotic, as exhilarating as going to Paris. Okay, I won't make that comparison. That would really be ridiculous. But on one level, it's kind of true, because you just don't know what you're going to see. And it's all this fantastic serendipity and surprise. So I'm a big fan of very little. I'm a big fan of little things.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes the littlest moments are the things that inspire the biggest stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like 1 second or one funny thing your child says that's enough to like write a whole essay about, or, it's just a little, it's that glimmer of like the shimmer around it that makes you want to, snatch it and smack it down on paper.
Very true.
And so, what projects are you working on now? What's coming next for you?
Well, now I'm working on a few books for adults. One is I did a little pamphlet with my son that we self-published to raise money for good causes. And that little pamphlet was called Women Holding Things, a little booklet, which is now becoming a book for adults. And that'll be published with Harper's, assuming the supply chain issues are resolved, hopefully within the next, in a year. And that's about women holding things, both literally and metaphorically, from a cabbage or a violin or balloons to holding a grudge, or holding on to your dreams, or holding your family together. So it allows me to go back and forth between the very mundane, oh, look at that incredible woman walking through the park carrying balloons, holding balloons, to thinking about my grandmother not being allowed to marry the man that she really loved, and what she held through her whole life. So a kind of a memoir, I don't know. And then a few other projects that I'm working on, some embroidery, some product development things.
Why couldn't your grandmother marry the man she loved?
She was an orphan, and the family that the man she fell in love with was considered the prince of the family. This is in Belarus. So she was allowed to marry his brother. They said, you know what? Can't get this one, but here's the consolation prize, that one. And that one was my grandfather.
Oh my gosh.
Who was a wonderful man, but who somehow, maybe her heart was broken at that time. I don't know. We never, of course, those are things that they wouldn't have discussed with children. This is kind of the stories that filter through the family from this aunt and that cousin. And so she always looked beleaguered and terribly sad, which, I sometimes do too, as does everybody. And so that's part of the story of what happened to my grandmother, a little bit.
That must have been crazy. Like every family event. And then there's the man she really wanted to marry right there.
And the man she really wanted to marry was a cunning businessman who employed his brother.
Oh my gosh.
You'll know more about my family than anybody does. But the brother, this became a huge success. And the man she married just wanted to pray and eat potatoes and be left alone. Very, very simple.
Huh.
The man she married was a wonderful man. And the man she didn't marry was not a wonderful man, but who go tell somebody what they should or shouldn't love.
Wow. That is so interesting. Well, there's a novel for you right there in your spare time.
Well, there are so many stories to tell. So I condensed this into one page within the book. I talk about my mother and how she wasn't happy with her husband, who was my father. So the thing about women holding things is the sense of, what do you hold all your life? What responsibilities and obligations and sorrows, as we all do. And so women are very exhausted all the time because of all the things that you have to hold. But anyway, that's the book.
Wait, so now I'm curious. When you got married, what kind of man did you find?
I married a stupendously amazing, fabulous man who we met when we were in summer flunk out class at NYU when we were 19. And we fell in love immediately and were together for, this is the 60s, so there was a little bit of breaking up and experimenting, but we ended up being together for 30 years and he died at the age of 49. It was an insane fate. But we had the most fantastic relationship of great friendship. And probably what I learned, maybe subconsciously, who knows, is that I wanted to be with somebody who was my deep and true friend. And so somehow luck guided me to flunk out of NYU, or almost flunk out of NYU. So look, we always say out of bad comes good. There I was in this terrible, and actually all the people in that class were so interesting and such crazy out of the loop of everything that I thought, this is a fantastic group of people. At any rate, I met, and his name was Tibor. He was Hungarian. He also had come to America when he was 7 during the revolution. And so it was a very good marriage.
Oh, well, I'm really sorry to hear he passed away, but how wonderful that you got that time and
a lot of time together.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And we worked together, so it was deeply nourishing, as we say.
Wow. Well, you've had the most interesting life. I mean, I feel like it's just scratching the surface. I feel like
that's it. There's nothing else. I make a good plum cake. That's about it.
Crumb cake or plum cake?
Plum. The one that's in the cake book is the, New York Times plum torte.
Yep.
Which is the most popular and most requested New York Times recipe, I'm told, or I've read. And so I've been making that a mile a minute during this plum season, which is now ending.
My family, of course, I knew that from the book and I forgot, but my husband's family, his grandmother made a crumb cake that they started a whole business around called Nini's Treats. And so my sister-in-law now still runs the company and found a factory to reproduce her famous crumb cake, and it's really yummy. So,
and do they sell them in the city?
Yeah, you can order them on Gold Belly, so they ship everywhere nationwide. But They're really yummy. Nini's Treats.
Nini's Treats. Okay,
I'll send you one. I'll get your address. I'll send you a Nini's Treat.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I will do it. They're delicious. Amazing. Okay, last question. Do you have any advice for aspiring authors / illustrators / grandparents? Anything you want?
Don't do it. No. My only advice is do what you love. You can't, there's nothing else to say. And either it will work out or it won't work out. I think that the perseverance of what you need to do, what you really need to do is the issue. So do what you need to do. That's all there is.
Love it. Amazing. Well, Maira, it was so nice getting to know you. Thank you for your time and for all of the illustrations and books that have, pervaded my household for a very long time. So thank you for all of it.
Thank you. Lovely to speak to you.
You too. All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.